Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiatoria. So for the last couple of months I have been trying out and using the SPES AP Light Jacket. So full disclosure, I'm not being paid for this review other than the fact that I got a jacket. So am I biased? Not particularly. I have several AP jackets, I have several SPES jackets, including an old AP, but I've also got the officer jacket. And I've got jackets from other makers as well, which I won't talk about in this video because this is about the SPES jacket. So, for many, many years, the Axel Petersen jacket, the AP as it's colloquially known, was pretty much the standard, certainly for longsword, and it kind of bled over into other Hema styles because it was a very good jacket, but lots of people found it too bulky for what they needed or too hot, and there's a trade-off there. So ultimately, we have to accept, before we make a review about any kind of Hema jacket, we have to accept that there's always going to be trade-offs between protection, mobility and heat, okay? And very often, the more you increase either protection or kind of change mobility, those two things are going to be related. So protection often inhibits mobility, but increasing protection will also increase heat, usually, as well. Although, we'll talk about that in a second. So the AP Light Jacket, how is it different to the standard Axel Petersen jacket? I will put it on in a second, incidentally. I'm outside in my garden room and it's really cold today. So I'll keep my coat on for now until I'm ready to change, and also I need to move the mic around, so a little bit complicated. But let's just have a little look inside it. So you'll see inside it's got this kind of wicking fabric, but most importantly it's got these large pockets, okay? So there are, I would say, three main areas of these pockets. The first ones are these rectangular sections that are on the sides, and they go around the side of the ribs. They essentially protect the rib cage, okay? Next up is a strip down the front, so that protects the sternum and the front of the ribs, and where the join is, where the kind of overlap is. So you've got quite a lot of protection down that central line, and then two sections on the side, and then you can't quite see them, it's a bit difficult on camera, but you'll hopefully be able to see the outline of them on the outside. You've got two shoulder plates. Now, these are a bit like a plate carrier, so a kind of like modern body armour, ballistic armour. They're removable sections. Now theoretically, so these are pockets which at the top have Velcro, and I'll just show you, inside is a piece of foam, okay? There we go, a piece of foam like that. I'm not going to take it fully out because I want to put this jacket on in a second, and it can be a little bit fiddly to get them in and out, but you usually decide what configuration you want and then you leave it like that, frankly, okay? So what I have done is I actually took the shoulder plates, if we call them that, extra shoulder protection out, because for what I do I just don't need it. And I have to be honest, I found that the shoulder protection gave the jacket a slightly strange feel in motion. They kind of got in the way a bit, and they made the shoulders stick out and be a bit stiff, and inhibited the, I won't say inhibited the arm movement, it didn't stop me moving my arms or anything like that, but I found that they were just a bit annoying. And frankly, I can't ever remember in my nearly 20 years of Hema, I can't ever remember off the top of my head ever getting hurt by being hit in the muscle of my shoulder. I find it's a pretty well protected area, to be honest, and there are lots of other bits of my body which hurt a lot more when I get hit there, such as bits of my legs or my forearms and the bony bits, basically the ribs, this kind of stuff, the hips. And I've never had a problem with being hit on the shoulder with longsword or sabre or anything else I've done, sword and buckler, whatever. So we've got those. There are some other features. Let me show you its features, as Jörg Sprav would say. There are some other features about this jacket, okay? Number one, we've got the kind of almost trademark quilted padding down on the forearms, and big poofy, kind of puffy upper arms. Now, this is quite a medieval shape, and it's inspired by 14th and 15th century akatons, sometimes known as kind of arming jackets, arming doublets. And the advantage of that is that This is fairly slimline, but relatively dense, so it does offer some protection by itself, but equally you can easily put forearm defences, of which we look in a later video of what SPES offer for that, but you can put extra forearm guards over that. But you will notice on this other arm, I have an elbow guard, because I personally actually use a forearm protector from a different company that's much more minimal. It's a Destroyer Mods one, it's just a piece of plastic, because that's enough for my purposes with Sabre, which is what I mostly do, as you guys know. But I do need an elbow protector. Not because I've ever actually been hit and injured in the elbow, but because I really dislike the idea of it. That's not actually totally true. I have been hit once in the elbow and it made my hands go all tingly for most of the day. So you don't want that to happen again. So the elbow protector, you'll notice, is connected to this Velcro-y bit up here. If we look at the Velcro on the other side, where I don't wear an elbow protector because I'm right-handed, so I only wear one on my right arm. And you notice you've got this kind of setup here so that you can attach the SPES forearm guards and elbow guards to that, and they will stay in place. Now I have to say that's a double-edged sword, so to speak, in that one of the issues with having a fixed attachment point, just like points on an arming doublet for attaching armour to, is it has to be in the right place for you. And in some cases, due to different body proportions and having longer or shorter arms or broader or narrower shoulders, sometimes you might find that these are not quite in the right place for you. And I have to say, I've got pretty long arms, and the elbow attachment point is not in a fantastic position for me. It's a little bit, kind of a bit too high up, basically. But because it's a fairly long strip of furry stuff to attach the Velcro to, and that strap up there, you can move it around, so there is some adjustment in there. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put this jacket on and talk a little bit more about the fit and finish of it, as it were, but I'm just going to do a quick edit because I need to take my mic off and put the jacket on and attach it to that. So here we go, jacket on. It's dead easy to put on, super quick. Obviously I'm trying to avoid the mic as much as possible here, so apologies if you get any interference noise. Goes on like a regular jacket, and then these two bits overlap. Right, I'm just going to move the mic to the bib of the jacket as I do it. There we go. So you will notice that the one side overlaps the other side. Okay, so just like in fact, like lots of Hema jackets, but I think SPES were probably the first to do it. And then there's a zip, okay? And the zip does up. Now, I should say, in the early days, I had one of the early SPES AP jackets. In the early days, the zips suffered some failures. But these new zips seem to be much better. So I think SPES took that on board, they improved the zips, okay? Not rocket science. Right, in terms of the fit, you'll notice I went for a grey jacket incidentally. I believe it or not, I'm finally getting bored of Hema black. I wanted a different colour. I'm just going to move, sorry to do this on screen, but I'm just going to move the mic slightly to a different place. There we go. Hopefully that still works for you, just so it's not quite so much in my mouth. Right, so you will notice that it's got quite big poofy upper arms. Now, some people don't like the aesthetic of that, don't like the way it looks. I'm probably one of those people. It is historic particularly to the late 14th century and early 15th century, and there's a very good reason for it, and it's because it gives you very good mobility. It means that when you move the arms up, a lot of the motion and slack is taken up in this kind of poofiness in the space of the upper arms, and therefore doesn't pull the whole jacket up, which is a real problem if you're wearing a fencing mask. So one of the problems with sport fencing jackets, for example, is that sport fencing, generally speaking, keeps the arms in this kind of medium distance, medium height rather. Whereas in, for example, longsword, we're often moving the arms up like this. And you'll notice even with this jacket, it makes the neck come up a little bit, but not very much, not enough to be a problem. But with the sport fencing jacket, it pulls the jacket up, which can push the bib up and in fact can push the mask off if the mask's not well fitted. But it's just generally not nice, it's not a problem. It impedes your movement, it can interfere with the mask, this kind of stuff. So, reason for the poofy sleeves. There are several reasons actually, but that's one of the most important reasons, is the mobility of the arms. But also it gives a little bit of air around, and a shock absorbency of course as well, because obviously if the sort of crumple zone, as it were, is further away from your body, it's going to take some of the sting out of a blow. But it also gives you a bit of space inside for your body to breathe, so you're not utterly kind of like in a straitjacket and suffocating inside there. You'll notice I'm moving around the elbow plate. Every time I put this jacket on, I have to readjust the elbow slightly to get it in the right place, but you'll notice it is in the right place now. You might also notice that with my long arms, the sleeves are a little bit on the short side. Okay, this is the standard size L. I have a slight problem with SPES standard sizes in that I'm an L around the chest and shoulders, but I'm an M around the waist. But if I got an M jacket, the sleeves would be way too short and the shoulders would be too tight. So I have to get an L, but that's not a problem with this jacket, because they have very correctly, as lots of jackets do now, fitted this strap at the back. So I yank the strap tight, and that makes it a bit more fitted to my body, as hopefully you can see. So it's pretty close in. Now, the plates underneath. So what have we done? How have we changed from the AP jacket to the AP Light Jacket? Well, quite simply, it's got less padding in it. Okay, less padding means less heat, better cooling rate essentially, but also it means less protection, of course. Now I have to say, I have felt the less protection of this. Sometimes you get a hit in a place where one of those plates isn't, and you do feel the fact that it's not got as much padding as the original AP jacket did. And that's a trade-off. You just have to accept that. This is the AP Light, and you know, if you want to be less hot and just accept that it's going to hurt a bit more when you get hit, you can pick up a few more bruises, then this is the jacket for you. If you don't want that, if you want maximum protection, then you go for one of the heavier jackets. So really, SPES are filling all of the kind of spectrum for whatever kind of jacket you want. Now, I should compare this briefly to the officer jacket. Now, full disclosure, I personally prefer the officer jacket for my purposes, but bear in mind that I do sabre, and I'm thankfully not too bad a fencer, and I don't receive too many painful hits to my body area. Okay, I've got some excellent sabre fencers in my group, not to say I don't get a hit. I think at the moment, I think we've got first and second on Hema rankings for sabre in the UK with Pedro and Amir, but and I do fence them on a weekly basis, so I do get hit, sometimes quite hard by both of them, but the fact is that all of the jackets that I've got are actually adequate for what I need. I've got the officer jacket, I've got the SPES AP light jacket, I've got the heavier SPES AP jacket, and I've got other makes of jacket as well, and basically they all do the job. So what it comes down to me is, given that they can all protect me adequately, with the addition of a forearm and an elbow, they all protect me adequately. What it comes down to me is what they look like, because that is a factor, we have to accept that. Do I feel like they suit me and look good and fit me and that kind of stuff, okay? Number two, mobility. And number three, heat. Now, heat's a big factor for me, not because I live in a hot country, but because with my nature is very much more towards cold places. And I'm fine in cold weather, and I'm not great when I get hot. I don't function very well in heat, I don't cool down quickly, all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate a jacket which isn't very hot. Now, what's surprising is the heavy jacket of this, the AP Heavy, as we'll call it, the original AP, is quite a hot jacket, okay? But it's not the hottest jacket. I'm not going to mention other makes in this video, but there are at least two other companies' jackets that I have used, which are hotter, in one case significantly hotter, than the SPES jackets I've had. The officer jacket is an interesting one. So originally I got the officer jacket, not just because I liked the look of it, and I do like the look of it more than all the other jackets, but one of the reasons I got it was because I was fed up with being too hot all the time in another make's jacket that I was wearing at that time, and I was just overheating the whole time. Quite often I had to just stop fighting, not because I was out necessarily, my stamina was failing or my muscles were failing, but because I was just too damned hot. I just had to stop and cool down. I was just getting too hot in the training hall. So I was really keen to get a jacket which was cooler. And the SPES officer jacket is cooler. But what surprised me is this looks like a bigger jacket. This looks like a more bulky jacket. But this is cooler than the SPES officer jacket, in my opinion, okay? And I don't know exactly why that is, but I think it's because of the materials this is made out of. As far as I can tell, this jacket, like the AP jacket, is made of slightly more natural materials. It's got wicking fabric on the inside, but it's more cotton-like on the outside. The SPES officer jacket seems to be more like man-made fibres, and despite the fact it's thinner, it seems to retain heat more. The advantage of the SPES officer jacket is that you can wash it and it's not going to shrink and that kind of stuff because it's kind of modern, you know, man-made fibres. My experience with the original AP jacket, this hasn't been washed yet, incidentally. The SPES, and it smells okay, surprisingly. The SPES AP jacket, the original AP jacket that came before this, my problem with it, and I think we've had, between me and Lucy, I think we've had 4, is that they do shrink slightly in the wash. And in one case of Lucy's jacket, she probably washed it on a slightly higher temperature than she should have done. And it shrank so much that she couldn't wear it anymore. The sleeves were too short. So there's a trade-off. On one hand, the more natural fibres are cooler and breathe better, but on the downside, they seem to be more susceptible to shrinking in the wash. The other thing I would mention as well is aroma or smell. And one thing I've noticed is that the SPES officer jacket, whilst I love it, and it is my favourite jacket, does get a bit more smelly. And I don't know whether it's related. I don't know if it's because it's the man-made fibres and it doesn't breathe so well and that kind of stuff. But the SPES officer jacket seems to require washing more often and get more smelly than these do, okay, than the kind of cottony ones do. I assume they're cotton anyway. I just want to talk also briefly about the plates in here. So I took the shoulder plates out because the shoulder plates were in the way, and I also thought they gave the jacket an especially weird shape, because the problem with the plates is they only conform kind of in one plane. They curve, but they don't bowl very much. And so these plates on your shoulders, your shoulder being a kind of ball shape, I found that the plates just didn't sit around the shoulders very comfortably. Now, it might be that with time and with use, they would form to you and they would be better. I just didn't like them there. So I whipped those straight out pretty much, I think, on the second time that I'd worn the jacket. I just took the shoulder plates out and I was like, now it moves better and everything else. So in terms of the fit and sizing, for me personally, I should probably, in an ideal world, get a tailored one with slightly longer arms. I should mention though that the being slightly short in the arms is not a big problem because of course you wear gloves with cuffs and the cuffs overlap those. So, you know, it's not necessarily an issue. I'm not personally a huge fan of how kind of poofy the shoulders and upper arms are. I don't really like it aesthetically. I prefer the cleaner lines, the more svelte lines of the SPES officer jacket. In terms of protection, it's good. I have received some painful blows around the ribs areas through these plates. The plates do the job. I haven't had any, you know, like visible bruising or any kind of, you know, worse injuries. So the plates are there, and the advantage of the plates is I think they probably aid the cooling thing. So padding is great at absorbing, but plates spread the energy and your heat can transfer through them more easily than they can do through padded stuff. So, you know, there's definitely strengths and weaknesses of having plates. I think by and large, I'm a fan of having these plates inside, and you know, I think maybe that's something that more and more jackets will probably end up doing. We've seen it in other makes like Leon Paul and Red Dragon and such like, that they do have plates in there, and it seems to be a fairly good way of reducing the amount of padding, making the jacket cooler but still having a good amount of protective qualities in there. And I would also say, in terms of a broken blade, I like the idea. I don't know the science behind this, but I have a gut feeling that against a broken blade, having a combination of some hard defense and some soft padded fabric defense, and those two things, having those two things there probably provides a better degree of protection against a possible broken blade than just having padding there does. But certainly different layers of different things seems to make sense from my general knowledge of kind of armour and how, even if we look at tanks and stuff, but how ballistic protection or blade protection is likely to work. So I'm going to wrap things up there. I realise I've gone on for quite a long time. Overall, do I like this jacket? Yes, I do, and it's the current jacket that I'm using. Okay, I love the fact that it's cooler. It's cooler than the SPES officer jacket, in my opinion. It's and therefore cooler than pretty much all of the other jackets I've used, except for modern sport fencing jackets, which don't provide enough protection. So for a Hema jacket, it's the coolest jacket that I have personally used. I really like it. I keep it on throughout a session. I put it on at the beginning. I fight a bunch of fights and I take it off at the end. Whereas a lot of other jackets, I'll find myself after a fight or a couple of fights opening the thing up and trying to fan myself, or taking it off and putting it back on, taking it off, putting it back on. This one I'm happy to it seems to breathe better. I do have some concerns about the washing and the shrinkage issue, but you can put things on a gentle hand wash, or you can literally hand wash them in the bath or that kind of stuff. It hasn't got smelly so far, so it seems to breathe, it seems to do well. It could partly just be because it's winter and the bacteria don't multiply so quickly. In terms of the shape, I'm not a huge fan, I have to say. I think the arms, I think there's too much bag here. So some of my club mates, that was the thing they commented on when I first got this jacket. It seems like what SPES have done is they've taken the AP, the Axel Peterson jacket, and they've just taken a bunch of padding out and then put the plates in. And perhaps the tailoring of the outside of the jacket, the outer shell, needs rethinking and maybe tightening up a bit. I think it's particularly around here, I've been hit literally on the fabric down here, and thrusts have gone in and got caught there where my arm actually isn't. And I'm relatively thin guy, but someone, even someone bigger than me, would still not fill up that jacket. Okay, so I think that personally there's too much fabric around the upper arms, and I think that the arms in general could do to be a little bit longer, and maybe to have some kind of fold up option for people with short arms. I don't know. So I kind of think like the body, I'm quite happy with the body of it. I don't like the shoulder plates, but I understand some people might do out there. I don't know personally anyone who would, but and I like the way that the lower arms could possibly have more protection than them, but I do understand that the intention is to wear additional van braces, forearm guards and elbow guards over the top, so that's fine. So by and large, I do like the jacket. For me, the SPES officer jacket narrowly pushes this one out in my preferences, but that's mostly because of how it looks and fits. It suits my body better, it suits my movement better, it just seems to fit me and is a better cut. But in terms of actual use, I could possibly say that this is better. I think this offers more protection, especially with the option of those plates, and you could put additional things in those plate carriers. Remember, you could put ballistic ceramic plates, or you could put steel plates, or anything in there. Those pockets are there, you could put anything inside, literally. That's strange. But in terms of protection, I think this is better than the SPES officer jacket, and in terms of cooling, this is better as well. So there we go. I've given you all the information I can about this jacket. I think a lot of things here are standard and you'll be familiar with if you're familiar with any other Hema jacket. I don't need to particularly talk about the collar. It's got a blade catcher. It's fairly standard these days. It's overlapping at the front, blah, blah, blah. This is all pretty much similar to most other Hema jackets. The main headlines of this are removable plates, thinner and cooler than the AP jacket, slightly more protection than the officer jacket, and it has a sort of medieval shape and cut to it, which you may or may not like. But overall, SPES, in my view, as far as Hema jackets are concerned, are still pretty much the leaders of the industry. And thanks for sending this to me, SPES. I'm enjoying using it, and I will get lots more use out of it. And I can't recommend SPES's service and products highly enough. For me, they have always delivered, and I cannot say that of other Hema companies out there who have either disappointed with their products or disappointed with their service, or both. For me, SPES never have. So thumbs up, big thumbs up to SPES. You're still the bosses of the Hema protective clothing industry as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys soon for another video, hopefully really soon. See you guys. Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.